all of my book lovers out there, and if you don't read a book, you're going to want to read this one. This weekend is a Navy veteran rather, is sharing his insightful story on his time of service and the lessons he's learned to help propel readers' leadership and move their journey forward. He's talking about it in his new book, Lessons from the Admiral, Naval Wisdom and Sea Stories for Leaders. We are delighted to have Mark Fava joining us. Mark, congratulations on your new book.
Thank you, Billie Jean.
Yes.
Thank you for having me.
And it's been doing well because you're one of Amazon's bestsellers right now.
Absolutely. We're hitting our 100-day mark, and the first edition is sold out, and we're already on a second print.
Congratulations to you. I thought this was very interesting because you were an aide for 30 years, or 30 years ago.
30 years ago, yes, ma'am.
To an admiral, which is the highest ranking in the Navy.
Right.
Tell us, just start there. Tell us how did that point in your life help lead to all the lessons you learned in this book?
Sure. I mean, it's a pretty interesting selection process. I'd finished my first 3 years in a Navy squadron, and I decided I wanted to do this job. And, you know, as we were talking about earlier, from the beginning of the morning till sunset, you do everything. You make sure the speeches are ready, he gets to point A to point B, uniforms are ready. And that's what I did, and all the lessons I learned in that job, not only doing the job, but from this person as an individual and a great leader, were banging around in my head for 30 years. So I finally decided during the pandemic to write them down.
Yeah, what are some of the lessons that, even if people were not in the military, this book is from them?
Absolutely. Matter of fact, I would submit to you, I've got more people that aren't in the military reading it now that as opposed to are. It's great for veterans and active duty, but, you know, just very basic stuff like being incredibly prepared, being on time and being punctual, leading with empathy, always saying thank you. The things that we should be doing that I don't think we are, and I tell how he did those to me, and then at the same time I close each chapter with how I've tried to do that over the past 30 years and how it's worked for me.
I'm so glad you shared that, because I think some people think, like, especially if you're in the Navy, it's just like very tough and rough and like, get over there and do what you're supposed to do, right? But it's not a thankless job, and you receive that compassion and that empathy, and now you're telling people how that goes a long way when you are wanting to be a leader.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm not saying you don't hold people accountable. I'm just saying there's a respectful way to do that, right? He could just look at me and say, I'm very disappointed in you today, and that was worse than yelling at me. So, you know, but he would deliver the message that way.
That's good. What would you say is your favorite chapter in this book?
Gosh, I think it has to be the last chapter, and I don't want to be too big of a spoiler, but I made the decision at the end of that time to come back here to Carolina Law School, and trying to figure out a way to tell him that I didn't want to continue in active service, that I wanted to switch over to the reserves was very difficult. And the way he handled that, when most admirals would have fired the aide if they said they were getting out of the Navy, the way he handled that was touching, and has stuck with me for a lifetime.
That's important, because you're saying that this is something that happened, your experiences from 30 years ago, and it still stuck with you today.
Absolutely.
Those who have read the book, what are some of the reviews that you get?
You know, it's been very humbling. I've gotten over 128 five-star reviews on Amazon, and some people I don't even know. You know, you expect your family and friends to give you a five-star review.
Absolutely.
But when you pull up emails and letters and notes from people that you don't know, many of them said, I felt like I was sitting in the room with you. Thank you for reinforcing what was important. And that was critical for me, just because it was, 2 years in the making.
Yeah, is this your first book?
It is, yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes that's like a challenge to take that on, and you're talking about all those lessons you learned, and then you try to put it in a book. Was that challenging for you?
Very, very much so. You know, because I still have a daytime job, so I'm still working full time. But it was something I've always wanted to do, and like I said, it took 2 years, but it was just a constant process, constantly picking it up. I had a great publisher, some great editors, and the first thing the editor told me was, stop writing like a lawyer.
Oh my gosh, really?
Write the way you remember it. Stop writing like a lawyer.
Remember it. Well, listen, you're so personal just even talking to you.
Thank you.
I know that if this is in this book, then I can understand why people feel like you're sitting right in their living room with them. And I also complimented the cover as well.
Thank you.
Some people shop with their eyes, and you said it took how long to do the cover?
Yeah, 2 months. I mean, I didn't know much about Pinterest, but they said put together a Pinterest board, and I said, what's that? And they said a bunch of pictures, and that was my vision. So that's actually the sleeve of the Admiral envisioned by me as I'm sitting in his office the first time that I talked to him.
Wow. Oh, okay. Yes, I see it. The arm right there. It looks amazing, Mark.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you, Billie.
Let's talk about the event on Saturday happening at All Good Books. What can people expect?
Gosh, it's a wonderful independent bookstore in the middle of downtown. It's got a great story about how the community came together together to put that bookstore together.
Yeah.
And I'm going to be there from 3 to 5, meeting people, talking with people, not only signing books, but personalizing them, which is a little bit different. You tell me a little bit about you, and I'll write your name and a note in there.
Yeah.
And just very happy to be there because I went to school here. All Good Books is just a great community bookstore, and it's right in the heart of 5 Points.
Mark Fava, thank you so much for
Thank you,
joining
Billie
us. And make sure that you can go ahead to Amazon and order your copy of Lessons from the Admiral, Naval Wisdom and Sea Stories for Leaders. Read it before Saturday. Maybe you have some questions for Mark, and I'm pretty sure he would love to answer them.
And All Good Books will have a ton of books, so you can buy them there. Absolutely.
You don't even have to wait for it to come in the mail.
That's exactly right.
That?
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Much more Soda City after this.